Normal first start of the day. Pump twice. About a third throttle. Run the blower for 5 minutes. The timer will go off when the blower is done. Crank her up and be ready to throttle down. This red light means that the drive is not all the way down. Under normal circumstances, you don't want to run the RPMs up when the light is on. Oil pressure at idle is usually around 40. All you really need is 10 pounds per 1,000 RPM. When she gets up to about 150, she's warmed up, sufficiently warmed up to take her out and do whatever you want to do. We like to see the volts up here above around 14. When she's all warmed up, don't need to pump, just give her about a quarter or third throttle, hit the key, whoops, and she'll light right up. There's two fuel tanks. The forward fuel tank is the big 80-gallon tank. Switch her up to see what you got in the 80-gallon tank, and down to see what you got in the 40-gallon tank in the engine compartment. We turn it off because the gauge draws volts when nothing is turned on. So we don't use the fuel meter unless we really want to see what's going on. The flow scan shows the engine hours, the gallons per hour or the miles per gallon, and the gallons used since the last reset. You switch between gallons per hour with the switch up, well, actually in the middle position, miles per gallon with the switch in the down position, and if you want to reset the gallon you used, you hold it in the up position for 10 seconds. Now when you got the tanks full, you'll know how many gallons you've used since you reset. Here we see the 260A purring like a kitten. She's a small block Chevy 350, putting out 260 horsepower. Over here we have our 40-gallon plastic tank. Over here we have 2 of our 3 batteries, and the big cylinder is the filter for the raw water pump. Over here we have the 3rd battery. And here we have the transducer for the aft depth sounder. This is a switch to pick which tank you want to draw from. On the left hand or port side, we're drawing from the big tank. On the starboard side, we're drawing from the 40-gallon plastic tank. Over here we have a fuel water separator and a filter for either tank. The gray thing is the 80-gallon custom fuel tank that replaced the leaking 50-gallon tanks. This is a switch, a valve that lets you either pump out via the deck fitting or use the macerator to pump out of the fitting in the back of the transom. This is the fitting that you would attach a garden hose to pump out the holding tank via a garden hose. It's on the starboard side of the transom. The black wind-up switch is for the macerator. If you want to pump out using the macerator, you got to twist that switch. Give yourself at least 15 minutes or so. The outlets, one is for the freezer, and the other one is for the heater that I use to keep the engine compartment nice and warm even when the weather is below freezing. Here we have the handle for the spotlight. We have the fixed mount VHF. We have the DVD player. We have the charging station for phones and anything that needs 12 volts. And here we have the small TV with remotes for the DVD player and the TV. This is the Freedom 30 inverter, 3000 watt inverter and 130 amp battery charger. It has a remote control panel, and you probably want to read up on how this panel works. Here we have the voltage readings of all three batteries. They're all the same right now because the ACRs have them all connected, and they're being charged by the onboard battery charger. This is the onboard battery charger. I use this charger when we're sitting at the dock, when we're plugged in at home, because it charges with a little less emphasis than the Freedom 30 does. If you look, you see we got 13.5 volts here now with the onboard battery charger, and we're going to push the charge button on the Freedom 30, and now we're going to look and see what happens to the charging voltage. The charging voltage is a lot more with the Freedom. I don't think that really has a problem with the battery life, but when I'm at home, I generally use the onboard charger rather than the Freedom charger. So we'll turn that off now. Then we have the remote start for the generator on the roof. And this tells us what the voltage of the generator battery is. We have a small... I have replaced the small battery in the 3000i with a lawnmower battery that's under one of the seats on the flybridge. So we've always got plenty of power to start the generator. Worth noting is that you can change the amount of incoming amps with the Freedom inverter charger. If you're running the air conditioner and you try to charge the battery at 130 amps, she'll probably kick out and fault on you. In which case, you want to run the incoming breaker amps to 15 or less if you have that problem. If you're wondering what kind of power you're using, under the seat here is a voltmeter, ammeter. I don't know if we can get focused on this. It shows how much power the boat is using. So if the batteries are down and you're running the air conditioner, this number will be real high. Coast Guard requirements make sure you have flares aboard, and those flares, the chemical flares, they expire after so many years. With this electric flare, you're always good if you have up-to-date batteries, and we have batteries over here with a nice battery holder and dispenser. So you don't need to carry the chemical flares with you because you have the electronic flare. There's a switch right here that controls the ACRs, or automatic charging relays, that connect all the batteries together when there's a charging source. In this case, we have a charging source because the onboard charger is working. So all of the batteries are connected. There's one charger for one ACR for 2 batteries. There's the other ACR for the other 2. If there's no charging source present, then these lights will turn out. This power panel, which is behind the helm seat, pretty self-explanatory. This is the onboard battery charger that we were just looking at, and if I turn this off, we won't be charging via the onboard battery charger. I have just turned this switch to the off position, so the batteries are not connected to each other, and you see the green light went out on both of the ACRs. If I turn the switch to the right, even though there's no charging sources anywhere, the batteries are combined via the ACRs. This would be good for like an emergency start situation, or if you wanted to use one of the other batteries to keep the refrigerator or freezer up. You can see both of these ACRs are now active. With the switch in the middle, it's automatic, so whenever there's a charging source, they will connect. The connection takes a few seconds so that there's no cycling under adverse conditions. So if you move the switch, be patient because things don't act immediately. This panel is an outlet for the bilge lights, the bilge outlet, and the refrigerator. We can turn either of them on or off right here, and the on or off is clearly labeled. You might have just heard a small click. That is because there's no charging source, and the ACRs both went into the non-connect condition. Without the batteries connected, we see the voltage of each of the batteries. You can see that one of the batteries is in much better shape than the other 2. Now we'll turn the onboard battery charger back on. Oh, by the way, the water, that's the main switch for the electric element in the water heater. We leave that off because if the water heater kicks on when the air conditioner is on and the generator is running, it might be too much for the generator to handle and things will power out. So what we do is, if we want to use the water heater, we put the switch on, but we twist this timer to 1 hour. That way the hot water heater won't come on when we're not expecting it, and we won't have to refire up the generator if it kicks out because there's too much load. If we're on shore power and we want to have the water heater on all the time, we got plenty of power, then we use this switch. We click that switch and that bypasses the timer for the water heater, so it's on all the time. This switch determines which end of the boat we're getting the power from. If it's pointed forward, then we're putting power in to the forward receptacle. This is the forward inlet for power. Currently we're getting power from my garage. By the way, there is a power outlet in the line locker at the front of the boat while we're up this way, and I use that to power the electric winch when I'm working with the trailer jack. In order for you to use the switch that either combines or keeps the batteries from combining. This galley combiner switch must be on. This switch, the GPS VHF, works both GPSs and the VHF up here, and it also controls this bus up in the locker. We have a handy little light up here that lights up a couple of lockers. And one down here when we want to use the coffee maker on this plug, we turn this one on, and we've got lights down here in this cabinet. This is the original head. It's gravity head, dumps right into the holding tank. No nonsense, no mess, no chemicals, no nothing. You just push the foot button, it puts water in there, and you push the other button and it dumps everything right into the tank. We like to keep a garbage bag handy, so we hang it right there in the galley. And then you can see the two bay sink and the oven, and underneath this little holder is a 4-burner stove, and we have the small 120 volt refrigerator. There's no freezer compartment in that refrigerator because who needs 4 ice cubes? And in addition to this small refrigerator, we have the chest freezer on the aft deck, and this can either be set up to be a real freezer or a refrigerator. We have a controller that limits the temperature that it will get to. This is the front of the boat. This sleeps too. There's also a table that goes here if people want to gather around a table and have a few drinks or something. The helm seat, it folds down, and along with this cushion it makes a 6+ foot berth. We have the bunk beds here. We use the top of the bunk beds for catch-all for all kinds of junk and stuff, but it is fully functional. And then back here we have the dinette, which feeds 4, 5 if you sit someone on there, and that's the cushion to make that double up forward that we talked about. This table drops to make a berth for 2, so overall she sleeps 7. She can sleep 2 up here as well. This is a fully functional fly bridge. I've got the steering wheel off because it makes things a little harder to steer below, trying to stop that wheel from turning one way or another. The gauges are all work. Oops, but the wheel is set up with its own wrench, so we can attach it in a quick, in a heartbeat if we want to steer from up here. This is the Honda 3000i generator mounted on a roof, along with the air conditioner. The generator fill is here, and we've got a switch here and here. If both of them are active, we pull out this, and we can pump gas into the generator from the main tank. So it makes it nice and easy to keep the generator full without a lot of hassle. We have lines here for easy docking and rafting, and this little green strap here is used is used to pull the trailer guides in, so you're only 8.5 feet on the road and don't require any